Dr. C. Narasimhan, Director of Electrophysiology, AIG Hospitals, Hyderabad. Dr. C. Narasimhan is the faculty head of Electrophysiology Department at CARE Hospital and President, Indian Society of Electrocardiography. Dr. C. Narasimhan is a pioneer in the field of electrophysiology who mentored the new generation of electrophysiologists in the country. We heartily welcome you, sir.
Thank you so much for the kind invitation. It's indeed a great pleasure to see my friends for this meeting. Dr. Rohan, Dr. Ashutosh, Dr. Bhuvaneshwaran, Dr. Ramakrishnan. It's really a great honor to be at this meeting. I think Dr. Mariappan, Padmanabhan, and Keshavamurthy and Nandakumar are also there as panelists. And a very warm good evening to all of you. And the talk is on approach to PVC. That's a common medical problem that we all of us face. And let us dwell deep into this. I think as you're all aware, suddenly when there is a premature white QRS complex, you need to differentiate, go and look back at the preceding T wave to see whether it is distorted or not. If the preceding T wave is distorted, very often it's a PAC that is conducted aberrantly, and the prognosis is entirely different. So whenever you see a broad QRS occurring prematurely, most likely it's a PVC. Rarely it can be a PAC that is conducted aberrantly. Because it's premature, one of the bundle branches will block, and the clue is in the preceding T wave, which is distorted. So first is to make sure it is a PVC you're dealing with. Second is how severe is the symptom? Was it incidentally picked up during a routine pre-op evaluation, or the patient highly symptomatic? Now, sometimes the PVC may be incidental and the underlying LV dysfunction, which the company it keeps, increases the risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Secondly, there may be clues from the ECG to suggest the PVC is not benign. There may be an activation abnormality like Brugada or a recovery change that you see in a long QT. When these things are there on the ECG, you should not just consider it as a benign PVC. You need to take it up one step further to treat the patient, even if it's asymptomatic. So the most important thing is to understand whether there is an underlying structural heart disease. Increasingly over the last, say, 2 or 3 decades, what we used to consider as benign PVC is generally a marker of an underlying structural heart disease. So we all get focused on the PVC and try to suppress it, but the more serious problem is an underlying structural heart disease, and you need to address that, identify with further imaging or stress testing, and then treat the underlying cause rather than just address the PVC. So PVC could be a marker of a more serious disorder, and you need to consider whether it's a low risk versus high risk PVCs. Now, why are the PVCs important? PVCs, generally, all population studies have shown that compared to patients, what you see in the red is the survival curve of patients without a PVC, and those with PVC have increased all-cause mortality as well as progressive increase in congestive heart failure. And do we have any clue as to which form of PVCs are more malignant? If you have a PVC on a stress test, which is present both during activity and rest, during recovery as well as during peak activity, that carries the more severe prognosis, and you have a higher mortality, close to about 30% over the next 7 to 8 years. Why does PVC occur in a given individual? All of us understand that there are structural bases for this, or electrical bases, in terms of conduction abnormalities, abnormal automaticity, abnormal refractoriness, and structural abnormalities. Now, these things are not esoteric, and don't think these are uncommon. These are present in your common garden variety of diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and obstructive sleep apnea. So again, go back to the basics, treat the patient as a whole, you'll be able to suppress a lot of these things. I think, Doctor, I saw a talk. We increasingly understand that diabetes is not just treatment of blood sugar or HbA1c alone. Significant reduction in mortality is seen in certain subgroup of patients with diabetes in terms of diastolic heart failure. Similarly, hypertension, the structural remodeling happens with certain antihypertensives compared to the other. Reduction of metabolic fat, visceral fat is extremely important, and obstructive sleep apnea needs to be addressed. I'm going to present 2-3 cases and then tell you, we'll probably have a take on this. This was actually a patient who was referred to us for catheter ablation because this patient underwent a prior catheter ablation, was still continuing to be symptomatic. And the patient was on metoprolol and had one episode of syncope or presyncope. What you're seeing is lead 1, 2, 3 and V1 to V6. You see leftward axis, V1 to V2, it's all QS, and then it's right axis. So it's coming somewhere from the outflow tract PVC. And the patient is on metoprolol. Should we increase the beta blocker, give calcium antagonist, start her on amiodarone or RF ablation? I'll just pause for a minute and then come back to this patient. This patient was referred from another city for an ablation. Only to, again, I'm going to put it up again. Look at the ECG carefully. Post VC, whenever there is a long pause, following the pause, the QT becomes grossly abnormal. So in fact, this patient, we are all centered on the PVC, whereas the underlying problem is a long QT syndrome. So mechanically going and cosmetically treating this PVC is not going to solve the problem because you're unnecessarily leaving this patient at a risk of sudden cardiac death. How do I move this? For some reason, the slide doesn't move. Okay. This is a second patient, 68-year-old, mild effort intolerance. And this patient had symptomatic PVC, normal echo. What next? I'll come back to this. This patient had an underlying angiogram, again referred for an ablation. This is a 63-year-old person, hypertensive, non-smoker, history of alcohol, significant palpitations, symptomatic PVC, had a mild LVH on echo, EF is normal. Again, you can see something like an outflow tract PVC. And this patient, again, was not well controlled. And there was a consideration whether to start this patient on sotalol for this. I'll revisit these cases again towards the end of my talk. What we have understood is there has been an increasing focus about the PVC burden and PVC as being a cause of a cardiomyopathy. Now, how do you decide whether the PVC is a cause of the cardiomyopathy? Number one, the PVC has to be very frequent. So if you have an occasional PVC that can be symptomatic, you need to look at the patient as a whole rather than just addressing the PVC alone. So roughly, this was an original study from Frank Bogan, which looked at approximately 24%, which was a cutoff to say that the patients are likely to develop cardiomyopathy. So when you have a short history of symptoms, preserved wall thickness, there is no gadolinium enhancement, GAD enhancement on MRI. There is a high PVC burden and the width of the PVC is very wide. These things should make you suspect that the PVC may be causing some degree of ventricular dysfunction. As a physician, when I'm saying most of the PVCs are benign, but are there any clues from the ECG to say that this is a little, has to be taken a little more seriously? Number one is presence of underlying structural heart disease. This may not be always obvious. You need to look at it a little more carefully in these patients. The advanced imaging techniques, for example, if you have a routine echo which is normal, look at GLS, look at regional strain. So if they are abnormal, they may suggest that the PVC is abnormal and it's due to a structural heart disease. Presence of LV dysfunction and PVC is a bad combination and you need to take it up seriously and investigate the person. About 2 decades ago, French authors showed that short coupling interval in a PVC, less than about 240 millisecond, if the coupling interval is there, Lienhardt and group showed that it is a predisposition for VT and VF, and very often it indicates the PVC arises from a His-Purkinje system. We ignore the good old ECG of coupling interval. When you have a varying coupling interval, again, it indicates it's a malignant PVC. And post PVC T wave abnormality, this used to be called as a poor man's stress test in the olden days. Post PVC, the resting STT, if it's abnormal, it indicates there is some degree of structural heart disease in a given individual. Now, again, when you have recurrent PVC, but the ECG shows fractionation of the QRS or bundle branch blocks, the PVC generally should not be considered benign. You need to investigate this patient further. Other subtle clues may be focal thinning of the, this is a basal septal thinning. Focal hyperechoic areas should make you suspect that you are dealing with some kind of an inflammatory disease or a post-infarction scar in a given individual. Why does a PVC cause LV dysfunction? Compared to short coupled PVCs, the long coupled PVCs and the wider PVCs have more dysynchrony. If you see one area of the ventricle compared to the other, they are contracting against each other. So the PVC, every other beat, there is a LVBB, and that produces LV dysfunction. So this could be a mechanism of LV dysfunction. This is a very elegant study which came out from University of Minneapolis, which looked at the effect of catheter ablation of PVC who continued to be highly symptomatic on medical therapy, drug refractory PVC. If you can get rid of the PVC, most important effect is in terms of diastolic function. Now, this is the reason why, even though patients have PVCs, their LV function looks normal, they feel much better when you suppress the PVC. It doesn't have to be an ablation always. You treat the underlying cause, give medical therapy, just suppressing the PVC itself improves the dynamics of the ventricle, and the diastolic function improves significantly, as was evidenced by this study. Every single diastolic parameter improved. In terms of long term, you can see a remodeling and the LA size coming down after the PVC ablation. When you feel the pulse in a given individual, if you see a long pause, typically the patients, these COVID times, they all monitor their pulse rate and they come back and say, my pulse rate is only 40, 45, because post-ectopic pause is read as bradycardia by these monitoring devices. In effect, this doesn't produce any effective contraction. And those PVCs, because they don't result in a forward cardiac output, can cause extreme degree of dizziness and weakness in a given individual. And getting rid of it will improve the given situation. This is a young adult who had a refractory PVC. He was on a combination of multiple drugs like amiodarone, initially tried on sotalol, amiodarone, mexaltine. Nothing worked. EF started dropping. MRI didn't show any scar. And because he was refractory to medical therapy and it was very frequent, on mapping, he had from one of the veins, we could ablate the middle cardiac vein region, we could map and ablate the PVC. Post PVC, the EF normalized to 60% and he is doing well. But this is a rare. Most of the patients don't need this. This is what I meant. This was the original Lienhardt paper, which looked at the short coupling interval of 240 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, predisposing to polymorphic VT and VF. And whenever you see a short coupling interval below 240, that should ring a bell that this person has a very short refractory period and there is an increased tendency for VT and VF in this patient. Please understand, whenever you suppress the PVC, the treatment may be worse than the disease. As we have learned from CAST trial way back a couple of decades ago, they effectively cosmetically suppressed the PVC, but actually the mortality increased, especially among patients with coronary artery disease. Now, this is again a patient to show that short coupling interval, varying coupling interval should make you suspect this is a malignant form of PVC, and soon after the patients degenerate into VT and VF, requiring a shock for suppression. This is a publication from UCLA looking at the coupling interval of the PVC, varying coupling interval 490, 600, 500. But the interectopic intervals are multiples of this. This is a parasystole, which is like an automaticity. This is more often seen in an outflow tract PVC, and they have adverse prognosis. You need to investigate the person and probably consider treating it differently. I'm sorry. Now, in a heart failure patient, whenever you see PVCs that are varying in morphology, but very skinny PVCs, very narrow PVC, they suggest it's coming from the His-Purkinje system. And one of the common trigger for this is digoxin. So when you have a PVC, one coming from the posterior fascicle, one coming from the anterior fascicle alternatively, it should make you suspect there is increased calcium overload. It could be because of the drugs, and one of the commonest culprit is digitoxicity. Now, this is what the original patient I had projected. This patient, all that we did was, remember, whenever the QT prolongs, the treatment of choice is not the fashionable good beta blockers like metoprolol or Concor, bisoprolol. Good old propranolol has better efficacy than these drugs. We just loaded this person with propranolol, everything got suppressed, and this patient is doing well on propranolol now for almost about 6 years on follow-up. This is a 49-year-old lady with mild hypertension, one episode of syncope and palpitation. Frequent palpitation, one episode of syncope. Syncope happened when the patient was sitting in bed and she had some fluttering in the chest and fainted. CAG had 40% lesion, mid-LAD on metoprolol and statins. So this is what the Holter or the recorder showed, that there was a PVC. What would you recommend? Would you recommend, let's just pause for a moment and see further investigation. Holter, loop recorder, or ILR. You can call the patient and do a prolonged loop recorder by inserting a small monitoring device under the skin, which will record the patient for say 2 years or so to see whether the seriousness of the PVC, or a loop recorder for about a week, or Holter for 1 or 2 days. Now, this patient went on to get a loop recorder. You can see that the PVC has varying coupling interval. This is a long coupling interval, short coupling interval. What would you do? Several things came up for this patient: CMR, FFR of the LAD lesion, so on and so forth. And this patient had a PVC with the ELR. Patient developed a VF on July, flatline, and died. Now, what is the clue in this? This is very important for several of us to understand. When you have a person who has already come to you with a syncope and has a PVC and told you that I'm fluttering in the chest and had a syncope, further monitoring, the patient gets a syncope once in 5 years or once in 6 years. It is not going to pick up a Holter on ILR, may or may not pick up. And we may lose the patient with all these monitoring devices. The same thing applies to picking up of atrial fibrillation. You may pick up an atrial fibrillation, but with a stroke. So I have serious concerns about becoming more and more technical in terms of monitoring. You need to use best clinical judgment. If a patient had fainted and he has got varying coupling interval on an ECG, it has been clearly shown that it is a high-risk subset and you need to treat them differently. We'll come back to this later. So PVC workup, you need to do a very careful echo. Please look at the echo carefully. What looks like a structurally normal heart may not be normal. Subtle forms of ARVC, subtle forms of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy are often missed, and you need careful echo and a GAD-enhanced MRI to rule out structural heart disease. If the episodes are happening during stress or activity, we need to do a stress test to look for inducible arrhythmia and ischemia. And if there is a suspicion whether this is an ARVC, signal average ECG may help. But nowadays, if it's a SCAR VT, please understand these patients better, they are better served by giving an ICD rather than suppressing with just drug therapy. So Holter may be used for assessing the PVC burden or in patients with post-MI LV dysfunction. The second patient with the PVC that I told you was again referred for an angiogram, and further several testing was done. Now the clue is in the ECG. If you see the ECG V1, V2, V3, there's poor R wave progression, V1 to V3. There is fractionation of the QRS. There is this kind of a PVC is called pleomorphic PVC. Multiple morphologies, pleomorphism of PVC. So when you have a PVC that is skinny, in the skinny PVCs are generally coming from the midline of the heart, which is the septum. There is evidence of septal scarring in what looks like a normal ECG. Unless proven otherwise, it's probably HCM or one of the inflammatory cardiomyopathy. This patient turned out to have sarcoid and was treated. You don't need anything. Just understanding the disease, looking at the ECG may be able to help you to make a correct diagnosis and treat the patient. It doesn't have to be very expensive. All that we needed to do this was a couple of doses of steroids, and we advised them to go for an ICD, but if the vast majority of our patients cannot afford, they can be on immunosuppression. The other thing is, this is one of my colleagues looked at it, Devabrata Bera. Whenever you have what looks like a benign PVC, look at presence of bundle branch block or fascicular block. If they are present in what looks like RVOT PVC, more likely that it's inflammatory cardiomyopathy. If this sign is not present, look for presence of QRS fragmentation. If that is present, again, it's likely to be sarcoid. The third clue is when there is myocardial edema in the septum, please understand the QRS voltages come down. So if you have low amplitude QRS, less than 5 millimeter, again, it suggests that it's probably an inflammatory cardiomyopathy. So there are simple clinical clues that tell you that this patient may not be having a benign PVC. When a patient has a PVC, look for symptoms, look for structural heart disease, ECG, echo, MRI. As I said, the ECG coupling interval, varying coupling interval, is a strong predictor of something going wrong. And one of the common mutations that causes is LMNA mutation and phospholamban mutation, which has got a very high risk of sudden cardiac death, as that lady what I showed you. So structural heart disease, if it's present, look at LV dysfunction. If it needs revascularization, revascularize the patient. If it's HCM, look at risk. Euroscore is quite useful in our practice to decide whether an ICD is required or not. In certain subsets of DCM with myocardial scarring and LV dysfunction, ICD may be required, but a vast majority you may treat them with beta blockers and low dose of amiodarone. In the absence of structural heart disease, what are the clues that it could be a benign versus malignant? So when you have varying coupling interval, short coupling interval, and varying morphologies of PVC, which persists during exercise and recovery, that again suggests that it's malignant and you need specialist consultation for this. Now, we have looked at our approach, but suppose you don't have access to any of these things and you feel that it's a benign PVC, go through the history. Beta blockers, for a vast majority of them, especially if they have low EF, try to choose drugs like bisoprolol, carvedilol, and for sympathetically mediated PVC, it works very well. Whereas if it's fascicular PVC, like narrow skinny PVCs, like fascicular PVCs, we tend to use calcium channel blockers. Additional drugs that can be tried are flecainide, which is well tolerated in a normal heart, but should not be used when you have coronary artery disease or severe LVH. Sotalol is a good choice in patients with coronary artery disease and PVC. However, you need to monitor the QT in these patients. Amiodarone is a good drug to suppress the ventricular ectopics in patients with low EF and structural heart disease, but you need to be wary of long-term use, especially in a young individual, because it's fraught with a lot of side effects. We find that sotalol, which is a class 3, plus a combination of 1B drug, this works very well for refractory PVCs or VT, sotalol plus mectritine combination. occasionally these expensive therapies like CRT that we put in may not be effective because of frequent PVC. This is a patient who had a very severe heart failure, improved very well with CRT from 2009 to 15, and came back with a recurrence of heart failure symptoms from Gulf country. And then he was tried there on amio, beta blocker, mexaltine. All that we had to do was map and ablate the PVC, and this CRT efficacy improved, and the patient's LV function and heart failure improved significantly. The third patient that I mentioned, which had an LVH and frequent PVC, all that we did was to map, get the, see, don't go by the respiratory OSA of, say, AHI of 24, 25, doesn't mean anything. You need to look at whether it happens during REM sleep, non-REM sleep, whether there is periodic limb movement, and the percentage of desaturation. That patient had a significant desaturation during sleep and a periodic limb movement of more than 250, and responded very well to just an therapy for sleep apnea. So this is a very nice review. I would suggest people to go through this by Marcus. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip this. This was recently published in Circulation. Essentially, try drug therapy first, and if it's highly symptomatic in normal heart, consider ablation. If it's a person with LV dysfunction and the patient has got frequent PVCs, you need to first give an ICD and then the antiarrhythmic therapy. Again, to be emphasizing to our audience, we feel that if you have a post-MI LV dysfunction patient who comes to you with PVCs, amiodarone may suppress the PVCs. This is a survival of patients with amiodarone versus ICD therapy. The survival curve of amiodarone is worse than placebo in patients with frequent PVCs and LV dysfunction. So please understand, amiodarone may cosmetically suppress the PVC, but it doesn't reduce the risk of sudden death. What you need to do is probably escalate the beta blocker temporarily. For symptom relief, you can use amiodarone. So management of PVCs, 3 key pieces of information are needed. Information regarding patient symptom, the burden of PVC, how frequent are they, presence or absence of structural heart disease. This is going to be a problem, but the modern imaging tools have been very, very useful to 80 to 95% success rate.